Amazing letter from beyond. Exposed secrets about my husband's death that will change everything. Sarah sat alone on her couch, flickering overhead lights casting shadows as darkness crept into the corners of the room. The weight of grief suffocated her. Every room echoed with Mark's laughter, now replaced by her children's innocent questions about their father. What they didn't know was the reality that lay buried beneath their perennial why questions. She couldn't bear to share the depths of her sorrow, afraid it might taint their childhoods. But the loneliness gnawed at her, amplifying the pain that her bustling life as a nurse failed to silence. A letter, postmarked the night of Mark's accident, sat ominously on the coffee table. It was addressed to her in his familiar handwriting, curvy and tender. She hesitated, an internal war raging within her. Wasn't this just a cruel trick? A joke from fate? Anxiety clenched her gut, causing her breath to quicken. If it was a love letter, offering solace amidst chaos, she had to open it. But if it revealed something darker, would her heart be able to handle the truth? As she finally lifted the envelope, her hands trembled. Within lay an expression of love, but also secrets that twisted her stomach into knots. Hidden debts? A partnership in a sketchy research laboratory? This wasn't the Mark she adored, the ambitious scientist with dreams of world-changing discoveries. Each revelation sent her spiraling deeper into despair. Did she marry a man living a lie? She had felt the security of their lives fracturing beneath her. Then came the worst. An implication that Mark's death might not have been an accident. Panic coursed through her veins. If this revelation was true, if there was a conspiracy at play, what kind of life awaited her and their children? A flicker of fear ignited her soul. What if she pulled back a dark curtain only to find monsters lurking behind? The thought paralyzed her. She raised her gaze to the children in their room, blissfully unaware of the horrors that may surround them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Now, everything she learned about Mark felt tainted, corrupted by shadows he might have cast. The sense of betrayal echoed loudly in her mind, racing alongside the dread filling her heart. Her blood boiled at the thought of confronting his family, who, consumed by their own pain, begged her to stop probing into the past. Why couldn't they see? Each phone call added another stone to her burden, weighing her down with guilt for grinding forward while they all seemed satisfied living in a bubble of grief. But in fear and fury, she glimpsed her resolve harden. What was she willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? Would she risk the fragile bond with her children for revenge, or risk shattering the family legacy they once shared? Standing on the precipice between anger and obligation, she knew she couldn't ignore the deepening darkness anymore. Just then, a final revelation from the letter sat, unprocessed in her mind. The storm gathering on the horizon, threatening to consume not only her peace, but the safety of her entire family. She clutched the letter as if it were the last thread of sanity she had left. It was a truth she couldn't ignore. Would uncovering these secrets bring her closer to justice, or unravel everything in ways she couldn't foresee? As Sarah sat in the suffocating silence of her living room, the letter sprawled like a haunting specter before her, its content echoing in her mind with relentless intensity. The walls that had once offered warmth now felt like a prison, suffused with shadows that mirrored her growing anxiety. The scent of Mark's cologne still lingered in the air, an illusion of comfort tainted by the revelation of betrayal. Barely able to breathe, she rose from the couch, each step jarring her mind racing toward the implications of who her husband really was. With frantic energy, she gathered her nursing scrubs, the familiarity of her profession providing a stark contrast to the emotional turmoil inside her. Work had always served as an escape route during tumultuous times. But today, the hospital beckoned not just for routine, but for clarity. A lifeline amidst chaos. Yet, clarity was elusive. Each patient offered a face, a story, a distraction from her tangled thoughts. But none seemed to stand against the revelation that if Mark had been living a double life, everything she believed was built on a facade. The rhythm of her daily duties became a grim dance as she smiled at patients and consoled families, while torrents of questions roared within her. Who was Mark, really? Why would he hide these debts? And the most pressing, what danger did this past hold for her children? As the day unfolded, a plan sparked in her mind and grew. It wasn't enough to sit in despair. She needed to dig deeper, arm herself with knowledge. She could uncover the truth behind the tangled web Mark had woven, his financial secrets, the partnership in the shady lab, and perhaps mitigate the risk looming over her family. Sarah's hands moved deftly through her responsibilities, every action purposeful. With renewed determination, she began formulating a strategy. First, to investigate Mark's work connections, particularly the enigmatic research laboratory. Her instincts told her there were layers of deceit hidden there, likely tied to the debts and possibly to his untimely death. She could hear the whispers of doubt. What if she pushed too far? What if they were just coincidences? But doubt was a luxury she couldn't afford. Fueled by necessity, she reached for her phone, scrolling through contacts and sending a simple message to Leah, a former colleague of Mark's who had been involved in the same research field. If there was a hint of truth to be found, Leah was her best shot at uncovering it. The workday wound down, yet Sarah felt alive with purpose as she strategized each step. The surgical ward buzzed with life, yet her thoughts were a wild cacophony of determination. It was long past time for her to reclaim her agency. No longer would she shy away from confrontation or mute her instincts. She needed answers, not just for her peace of mind, but for the future of her children. As she settled into her car, the weight of dread still palpable, her phone vibrated. "Let's talk. I have something you might want to know." Leah's message flashed across the screen. The phrase twisted her stomach with both anticipation and fear. The shadows deepened. What if this was the lifeline she needed, or a trap that would pull her further into darkness? The time had come to face not only the past, but the decisions that lay ahead. Would this be the breakthrough she longed for? Or would the truth unravel everything she held dear? Sarah's pulse quickened as she read Leah's message a second time, her mind racing with possibilities. Was this the missing piece to a puzzle she had yet to fully comprehend? She turned the ignition, the engine's growl breaking the oppressive silence that had cocooned her throughout the day. The hospital parking lot felt distant as she drove, her thoughts swirling, a tempest of determination and dread. Leah had always been the mouthpiece of the lab's hottest rumors, unafraid to speak uncomfortable truths that others shied away from. Yet was her former colleague about to share something that would further intertwine Sarah's life with Mark's secrets? There was a precarious line between curiosity and danger, one Sarah felt all too acutely. As she pulled into Leah's driveway, she stole a glance at her reflection in the rearview mirror. No longer did she recognize the woman staring back, but rather a resolve forged by the flames of betrayal. Leah opened the door, her hazel eyes searching Sarah's face as if willing to draw the truth from her. Without a word, she beckoned Sarah inside. The two exchanged a few pleasantries, but the air was thick with the unsaid, each woman acutely aware of the storm that lay ahead. "Why did you reach out?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her gut. Leah hesitated, glancing toward the living room as if weighing the implications of sharing information. I didn't want to believe it, but I came across something alarming about the lab's operations, specifically Mark's role. Her stomach twisted tighter at the mention of Mark. What do you mean? Well, Leah said, her voice lowered almost to a whisper. You know the lab's funding has been under scrutiny? After Mark's accident, I included his projects in a report. The word accident hit Sarah harder than a physical blow. Please, just tell me. There are discrepancies in the financial records. It seems there were funds funneled toward experiments that weren't exactly, ethical. Leah continued, her unease palpable. I don't know how deep this goes, but I found his name linked to some unsecured loans. It's not looking good, Sarah. Heat rose to Sarah's face as her mind reeled. So, he was risking not only his career but our family's safety too? Leah shook her head. I don't believe he intended for any of this to reach you. It's possible he got in over his head. But I think his death might not have been an accident. There are people who'd do anything to keep such secrets buried. The implications loomed like a dark cloud over Sarah's mind, engulfing any flicker of safety she had thought was left. In a heartbeat, everything about her life, her marriage, shifted to reveal jagged edges, each piece threatening to cut deeper. I need evidence, she said, her voice firm but her insides churned with turmoil. If this is true, I can't let it go. I owe it to my children to protect what's left of our family. Sarah understood now. The urgency of her quest wasn't just for the truth. It was for closure and safety. The stakes were clearer, and with them came a surge of courage. Leah's revelations had unveiled the very foundation of her life was at risk. What's the next step? Leah asked, her expressions shifting from concern to determination. I have to confront the lab. I need to see those records for myself. I need the truth, Sarah replied, her mind racing with strategies. And I won't let fear hold me back any longer. A wild mix of adrenaline and fear coursed through her as determination began to take root. She could no longer sidestep her fate. As Sarah left Leah's house, an unsettling thought gripped her. What would she uncover when she pulled at the threads of deceit? Would she be exposing merely Mark's sins, or unraveling a conspiracy that could threaten even more than her family? The truth awaited, shrouded in shadows and hidden beneath a false sense of security. But she wasn't just diving into darkness. She was wrestling with her own awakening, a resolve ignited by betrayal. Knowing now that this journey would change her irrevocably, Sarah grasped her phone tightly, preparing to make a call that could alter everything. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes, she muttered, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The next morning the sun filtered through the curtains like a sliver of hope, slicing through Sarah's despair. Yet even the warmth struggled to thaw the icy grip of anxiety that clouded her thoughts. She had barely slept, her mind a swirling vortex of Mark's secrets and the implications of Leah's revelations. Now, the stakes were set. She needed answers. After dropping the children off at school, Sarah drove to the lab, each mile feeling heavier than the last. The enormity of her task settled in her stomach, mixing with the dread of facing coworkers who had no idea about the storm brewing beneath their pristine facade. Sarah had always been a passive observer, quietly compliant in her professional surroundings. But today would be different. Today she would be a force of nature. As she approached the glass facade of the lab, its sterile modernity felt oppressive rather than inspiring. Sarah parked her car and steadied her breath, grounding herself before stepping inside. She could feel the intensity of her resolve building, but it was often placated by doubt. What if she was wrong? What if she uncovered something terrifying that she couldn't handle? But then she thought of her children and doubt morphed into fierce determination. Entering the lab felt like walking into a high-stakes game of chess, where most players knew not only the rules, but also the value of each piece. She navigated the open floor, eyeing her colleagues, the scientists who were her peers, but who now stood in stark contrast to the looming shadows of deception. It was time to confront them, not just as a widow seeking closure, but as a woman armed with knowledge and fierce protective instincts. Her first stop was Carol, the finance manager, a woman Sarah had occasionally exchanged pleasantries with, but had never really trusted. Sarah could feel the adrenaline surge as she approached her desk, the ticking clock echoing her heartbeat. "Do you have a moment?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. Carol looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her features. "Sure, Sarah. What's on your mind?" "I need to discuss Mark's projects and the financial reports related to them," Sarah said, her tone carefully neutral. "I believe there may be some discrepancies. I'm hoping you could help clarify a few things." The color in Carol's face shifted. She immediately bristled, instinctively defending her realm of expertise. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I just want to understand what happened," Sarah asserted, her voice gaining strength. "I want to see those records." For a moment the tension sat heavy between them, Carol's eyes widening in disbelief, or something akin to fear. "I don't think that's a good idea." With those words, Sarah recognized the shift. The tone of the conversation had morphed from casual inquiry to a confrontation, and Carol's body language signaled a wall going up. This was not merely about finances. This was about protecting a narrative. "I can't let this go," Sarah declared, heart racing. "I'm doing this for my children. If there's something wrong—" "Stop!" Carol interrupted, her voice lowering sharply as she leaned closer. "You don't know what you're getting into." Mark was involved in things that could destroy lives, including yours. The undercurrent of a threat mingled with concern made Sarah's skin prickle. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Just leave it alone, Sarah. You don't want to dig deeper into this. Trust me," Carol pleaded, her tone softening. But doubt no longer had power over Sarah. The confrontation had awakened something within, unearthing an untapped strength to challenge the walls of secrecy surrounding her. With a final sharp breath, she stepped back. "I need those records. Today." As she walked away, determination solidified her resolve. If others wanted to treat her as a passive spectator, she would show them otherwise. The game had shifted. The stakes had risen, and she was no longer merely a player. She was a contender willing to uncover her own truth, no matter the cost. Outside the lab, Sarah felt the weight of the world feel lighter. With every step she could feel a dormant fire beginning to blaze. Yet, as she punched the button to call Leah, an unsettling thought crawled into her mind. What if their confrontation had only just sparked the beginning of a far more dangerous encounter? "Leah, I need more than just financial records. I need to know everything," she urged when Leah answered, adrenaline propelling her words. "I think I've touched something I'm not ready for." As Sarah hung up, she sensed dark clouds gathering again, a sense that facing the truth was only the beginning of an even darker journey. What further revelations would rise to the surface, and at what cost? Sarah stood in the empty parking lot, her hands trembling slightly as she hung up the phone. The weight of what she was about to embark on felt monumental, yet beneath the trepidation lurked an urgency, a deep-rooted desire to shield her children from any further pain. The shadows cast by the secrets surrounding Mark's death gnawed at her, beckoning her to delve deeper into a mystery that could shatter everything she thought she knew. The drive home was a mismatched symphony of conflicting emotions. Each stoplight became a pause in her consciousness, allowing thoughts to spiral uncontrollably. Was she truly ready to unravel the tangled web? What if the truth she uncovered revealed more than she could bear? Yet she also felt a fierce flicker of resolve growing inside her, a fire that dared to burn brightly amidst her fears. Arriving home, her children's laughter echoed against the walls, a stark reminder of what was at stake. She joined them in the living room, attempting to mask her inner turmoil with smiles and laughter. But the pressing need for answers loomed over her like a dark cloud. After helping with homework, she excused herself, citing some mild fatigue, and retreated to the sanctuary of her bedroom. Here, she felt both vulnerable and powerful, alone in the space where her mind could run free. As she sat on the edge of the bed, the laptop's screen flickered to life, illuminating her face in the dim light. Sarah knew that seeking definitive answers would take her down uneasy paths, but she was undeterred. She needed to empower herself with knowledge. Scanning through Mark's emails and hidden files had always seemed an invasion of privacy, but now it felt like reclamation. The first communication she decrypted was innocuous, a casual exchange between Mark and a coworker about funding for a project. Yet beneath the surface, Sarah could feel the pulse of something deeper, something hidden. She meticulously catalogued every detail, familiarizing herself with the jargon that had once felt so alien to her. As she combed through each line, revelations began to surface, threading the familiar into a foreign narrative that made her heart race. The text of a government grant application caught her attention, laden with red flags but cloaked in technical jargon. It spoke of potential breakthroughs that could change lives, and offered funding in abundance. But the research path indicated was dangerous, with implications that ran far beyond pure science. Intrigued but cautious, she realized that Mark's work had the potential to cross into morally ambiguous territory, something she would never have expected from him. Suddenly, the chilling implications of Mark's work echoed Carol's words. A world of secrets, lies, and potential horrors that stood poised to engulf her reality. What had he gotten himself into? Could this lead to his death? Each question echoed loudly in her mind, amplifying with every heartbeat. With each document she opened, Sarah felt her resolve deepen. This wasn't just about unearthing her husband's past. This was about reclaiming her identity in this fractured world. It was about stepping into the roles of mother, protector, and investigator all at once. She was tired of feeling like a victim of circumstances. It was time to take control. The research connected to several contacts, people whose names were eerily recognizable. The web of collaborators and advisors surrounding Mark hinted at a vast network, one that pulsed with intrigue and danger. As panic swelled within her, she forced herself to breathe. This was more than she had bargained for. Fueled by both fear and clarity, she pressed on. Perhaps her life had been defined by being observant, passive, but today marked a journey toward action. Sarah's heart pounded as she clicked away, every discovery further igniting her curiosity and determination. But as night enveloped her home, a single email stood out. Its subject line sent chills down her spine. Final review deadlines. Confidential. It held an attachment with encrypted files that could be either the key to answers or the trigger of a deeper nightmare. The risks multiplied with every keystroke. It was one thing to uncover buried secrets. It was another to confront whoever was protecting them. Would she dare to open it? What kind of peril lay ahead? Sarah took a deep breath, the weight of her decision looming heavily in the air. The moment had come to face the darkness that could crumble her world or lead her to the unsettling truth that awaited her. What awaited her in that email could change everything, if she had the courage to uncover it. The cursor blinked on the screen, taunting her. The weight of the encrypted email pulsed in the room, a tangible entity filled with potential and peril. Every instinct told her to walk away, to preserve the fragile security she had managed to construct around her and her children. Yet, with each passing second, An undeniable conviction anchored itself deeper in her gut. This was a moment of transformation. A crossroads where her fear could either paralyze her or empower her. Sarah exhaled slowly. The decision to click on the attachment felt monumental. In her subconscious, she recognized it was also a point of no return. She had always found comfort in the predictable nature of her life, but now the thrill of the unknown beckoned her. Cautiously, she moved the mouse, her hand trembling but resolute as she pressed open. The screen flooded with a series of incomprehensible codes, cryptic symbols marching down the page in an intimidating algorithm. But buried within that digital fortress, she sensed there were answers lurking, waiting to be deciphered. Her heart raced, every beat a nagging reminder that she needed to summon the focus that had defined her survival in recent months. This could be the moment that not only reshaped her understanding of Mark's past, but also unearthed her own capabilities. With a deep breath, Sarah leaned in and began her dismantling work, recalling snippets of computer knowledge still etched in her memory from long-ago college courses. She felt oddly empowered, energized by the challenge. Here she was, a woman raised in the shadows of her husband's brilliance, finally stepping into the light of her own intellect. As she traced the lines of code, translating them slowly, a narrative began to crystallize. Her eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. What had initially seemed like just a mishmash of cumulative data began to reveal a chilling juxtaposition of Mark's professional ambitions with alarming ethical implications. The studies conveyed in the data enclosed were terrifying. They connected to clandestine operations she wouldn't have imagined Mark entangled in. Obsessed with potential, he had thrown himself into an undertow of ambition that could spell disaster, even death. Was he so desperate for acknowledgement that he ignored the consequences? She questioned, an unease churning within her. She was struck not only by what she found but also by the realization of her growing analytical skill, pulling threads from the confusion and weaving clarity. This was what she had feared. An acknowledgement of the man she loved being tied to decisions that risked lives. It felt sacrilegious to doubt him, yet here she was, gazing into the abyss of uncertainty. As the hour wore on, time twisted and blurred. She realized how far she had come from the woman that felt lost and broken just days prior. This new sense of agency flooded her veins. It wasn't just about discovering the truth about Mark. It was also about unearthing who she could become in the process. Was she capable of standing up against the forces connected to her husband's unethical decisions? The thought energized her. A distinct spark of determination ignited within. But the deeper she probed, the clearer it became. Unseen dangers lurked beneath the surface. The code was not merely data. There were references to individuals she recognized from Mark's work, people who wielded power in their fields. The tone of the document soon shifted from academic to alarmingly confidential, filled with warnings of consequences that seemed to hint at subversive activities. She could feel the focus of her inquiry shifting from uncovering evidence to protecting herself and her children. Just as she was gathering her thoughts to regroup, the screen flickered. An incoming message flashed before her eyes, one that directed her back into the darkness. The sender was marked as unknown. Her heart sank as she read the chilling opener. "We know you're looking into things. Back off, or you'll regret it." This wasn't just a threat. It was a clarion call to the danger that watched her every move. Would she step back, retreat into the safety of ignorance, or would she charge ahead, facing whatever storm lay ahead with newfound strength? In that moment, Sarah found herself at another crossroad. The email had unveiled her husband's hidden life. But now, the fight was as much about her survival as it was about the truth. Resolutely, she decided. There would be no retreat. The puzzle was larger than her, filled with dangerous implications. But if she was ever going to protect her family, she had to navigate it. And there, within her newly awakened spirit, lay a treasure she had never known existed. A fierce resolve to face those who shrouded her world in darkness. What dangers lurked ahead, and what allies might she find in this unexpected journey? The answers awaited beyond the shadows. Sarah stared at the blinking cursor, her heart pounding as the threat replayed in her mind like a broken record. Back off, or you'll regret it. The weight of those words clung to her, yet now they fueled a fire inside her that she had never known existed. In that moment, a pivotal decision solidified. A choice not just to uncover the truth about Mark, but to reclaim her agency. She leaned back in her chair and took a deep breath. This wasn't just about self-preservation. It was about questioning everything she thought she knew. Who was Mark? Really? And who was she, left standing in the wreckage of his choices? She needed a plan. An actionable way to delve deeper into the web of secrecy he'd orchestrated. Opening a new document on the screen, she began jotting down notes. The names of individuals connected to those ominous documents floated through her mind like phantoms. What if she could gather intel on these players? She'd need to conduct her own investigation, discreetly. Each name was a potential lead, a possible ally, or a threat. And it dawned on her that this was a chance to build something anew, a network of information that could either bring her closer to the truth or shroud it in greater peril. As she strategized her next steps, pangs of doubt crept in. What if they found out? The fear of potential repercussions was paralyzing. But a voice inside, the one she had awakened by venturing into this murky territory, reminded her that nothing worth gaining came without risk. The battle for her children's safety hinged on her willingness to confront this darkness. She decided her first action would be to research those involved in the dealings she had uncovered. If she could learn more about these individuals, perhaps she could leverage her knowledge against those who threatened her. With that, she began an online search for everything connected to Mark and his work, using private browsing to shield her activity. The results were illuminating and disturbing. The names she unearthed had ties to influential organizations and questionable activities that echoed through the industry like whispers of caution. It was a tangled tapestry of business and betrayal, making her realize just how deep Mark had been involved. As she pressed on, a feeling that had once been dread transformed into conviction. She had the power to craft her narrative, to shift the weapon of secrets that had been aimed at her back. In the intense focus of her research, she stumbled upon a contact, a former employee of Mark's whose departure had been marked by controversy. Their insight could be crucial, but reaching out to them would require tact. Gathering her information, she composed an email, careful to strike the right balance between professionalism and vulnerability. This was not just a mere inquiry. It was an invitation to forge a connection based on shared fears and truths. Pressing send ignited another wave of anxiety, but instead of fear, she harnessed it, channeling her energy into her next move. She practiced a mental checklist, contemplating who else she could contact, and what further paths she could explore. Each choice she made in that moment felt empowering, a step forward in reclaiming her narrative. Fueled by adrenaline, she rose from her desk and paced. She had to consider every angle. Her children depended on her decisions now more than ever. The tension in the air grew thick as she prepared herself for possible responses. Each ping of her email could either bring a new ally into her world or introduce an unforeseen peril. But the uncertainty was no longer suffocating. It was part of the game she was now willing to play. With every keystroke, clearer determination built within her. The threats were real and tangible, yet so was the knowledge she now possessed. And then, just as she calmed her racing heart, her phone buzzed. A response from the contact she had reached out to had arrived. "Can we meet? There's so much you don't know." It read. heart stuttering with a mix of fear and anticipation. She knew this was a turning point. What if this person held the keys to unlocking everything Mark had hidden? But as the door to deeper revelation opened, so too did the risk of exposure rise. Would she be prepared for whatever truth lay ahead? Or had she stepped into a darkness from which there was no return? The battle was just beginning, and with each step, she would wrestle not only for her family's safety, but for the clarity of her own identity lost within the shadows. Would she find the strength to stand her ground against forces she barely understood? Or would the pursuit of the truth lead her down a path she couldn't walk back from? Sarah inhaled sharply at her phone's notification, her heart racing with equal parts dread and resolve. The prospect of meeting Mark's former employee felt both like a dangerous gamble and an exhilarating opportunity. As she considered the implications, her mind whirled with questions. Who was this person? What did they know? And could they be trusted? She absently ran her fingers through her hair, a habit she had developed during these moments of intense contemplation. She needed to prepare, both mentally and strategically. The stakes were high. This was about more than just her safety. This was about safeguarding her children and finding the truth buried within Mark's deceit. Determined not to show weakness, Sarah opened her calendar to find the soonest available slot to meet with this new contact. The truth could reshape her understanding of everything, yet she wrestled with the fear of what that truth could entail. What if it didn't lead to closure but instead unveiled more uncertainties? The thought was unsettling, but she could not let fear paralyze her. She marked the time and added a note to review her conversation points. In those hours leading up to the meeting, she found herself oscillating between anticipation and anxiety. Would this meeting reveal the hidden depths of Mark's life that she had been oblivious to? Or would it plunge her deeper into despair? Sarah quickly populated a mental list of questions aimed precisely at uncovering the specifics of Mark's affiliations, any incriminating activities, and connections that could lead her to the people who posed a threat to her family. Arriving at the small cafe chosen for their rendezvous, she scanned the bustling room. The sights and sounds were overload against the backdrop of her racing thoughts. She caught sight of her reflection in the glass. Dark circles under her eyes, hair slightly disheveled. It was a stark reminder of sleepless nights spent unraveling Mark's secrets and worrying about her children's safety. She needed to present an air of confidence, despite the tempest brewing within her. As she settled into a corner booth, she practiced a few deep breaths, steadying her thoughts. Just as she felt a momentary calm, her eyes fell on the figure walking through the door. A man, perhaps in his late 30s, wearing a nondescript jacket and a wary expression. She recognized him from a small photo she had mugged online from an old company event. This was Jake. Their eyes met, and he hesitated for a moment before approaching. The initial pleasantries felt awkward, laden with unspoken tension. As they sat across from one another, Sarah grasped her coffee cup, drawing warmth from it to combat the chill of vulnerability creeping through her. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I know it must be uncomfortable." Jake nodded. "You have no idea," he replied, glancing around as if sensing unseen eyes. "Mark was complicated. There are things you need to know, dangerous things." As he leaned forward, his expression grew serious. The gravity of his words pressed down on her. She leaned in closer, ready to absorb his revelations. Each word could connect the dots of her fractured reality, yet could also lead her deeper into the labyrinth of treachery. "But first, I need to be sure you can handle what's coming," Jake continued, his eyes narrowing slightly, probing her resolve. In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of both defiance and fear. This was the threshold she had crossed, moving beyond just her shattered perceptions into the tempestuous tide of truth. Could she really handle what lay ahead? "I'll do whatever it takes," she responded, her voice firm, conviction overtaking any remnants of hesitation. I'm done being afraid. Jake studied her for a moment, and just when she thought he would share his secrets, his phone buzzed violently on the table. He glanced at the screen, expression shifting to one of apprehension. I need to go, he muttered, rising abruptly. This isn't safe anymore. Just trust me. I'll find a way to reach you again. Dread flooded her as she watched him slip out of the cafe, every second stretching painfully. The urgency of his departure sent a chill down her spine. Had she crossed a line that could draw unwanted attention to herself? Questions exploded in her mind, but an uneasy clarity set in. Whatever Mark had hidden, it was much worse than she had imagined. She knew one thing for certain. Staying passive was no longer an option. In the eye of uncertainty, she had ignited her determination to uncover the truth. As she walked home, the streets felt different. Tainted with secrets, yet alive with possibility. The facade of her normal life cracked, revealing shadows lurking just behind the surface. Would Jake reach out again? Or had the threads of danger tightened around her? The answer hung in the air, just out of reach, waiting to pull her deeper into a confrontation that would test every fiber of her being. The time had come for her to embrace the unknown, to confront the very truth she sought, whatever that may entail. And soon, she would discover the price of knowledge. The following days were a blur of tension and heightened awareness for Sarah. Each morning she awoke with a new resolve, but it was invariably shattered as reality seeped in, dragging her thoughts back into the murky depths of uncertainty. Jake's abrupt departure haunted her. What did he know that could be so dangerous? The questions gnawed at her as she juggled her responsibilities at home and the simmering dread surrounding Mark's enigmatic past. Driven by an urgency she couldn't fully articulate, Sarah began her own investigation. The children sensed her preoccupation, often asking if she was feeling okay. Each time she forced a smile, a thin veneer over the swirling storm within. It was vital to keep things normal for them, but in the quiet corners of her mind, alarm bells rang louder than ever. Utilizing every resource available, Sarah started scouring the web for information about Mark's connections. The more she uncovered, the darker the picture became. He had been entangled in an enigmatic world. Business dealings that hinted at corruption, financial discrepancies that spoke of deceit. Each click further entrenched her in an unsettling realization. The man she had built her life with had likely led a double life. Determination surged within her. Not long after her meeting with Jake, she crafted a plan. It wasn't enough to merely gather information. She needed allies. So she reached out to an old friend, Clara, someone with insight into investigative journalism. Clara had once been her confidant during college, and even after years apart, Sarah had always respected her sharp intellect and tough demeanor. The coffee shop where they met bustled with mid-morning clientele. Clara's reaction to Sarah's narrative was immediate. "You need to be careful," she advised, her eyes assessing Sarah's resolve. "This isn't a game. You could be uncovering something very serious." "I understand," Sarah replied, her heartbeat steadying as Clara's staunch demeanor began to inspire confidence. "But I won't back down. Not now." As they spoke, Sarah felt the weight of her choices. Clara had a skill set that complemented her own. Together they planned to dig deeper. They scattered strategies, from contacting former colleagues of Mark to utilizing social media analytics to uncover hidden networks. The thrill of this new venture ignited something in Sarah that had long been dormant. Her capacity for strategic thinking. Over the ensuing days, they collaborated in her small kitchen, poring over documents and notes. Clara guided her through the maze of information, showing Sarah how to connect dots that would have otherwise eluded her. Through the long evenings, Sarah unearthed small victories, names that had popped up repeatedly, and connections that began to form a clearer picture of Mark's dealings. Yet with each insight came an undeniable weight. What did all this mean for her family? For the life she once considered stable and safe? Then came the fateful evening when Sarah finally received a message from Jake. The text was terse but charged with urgency. "I found something you need to see. Meet me at the same cafe tomorrow, 5 p.m. Her heart raced again, but this time it was tempered with preparation. She thought of her children before slipping into a resolute mindset. She couldn't afford to hesitate now. There was too much at stake. As she lay in bed that night, thoughts looping like echoes, she contemplated the specifics of the meeting. Would Jake's information confirm her growing suspicions, or only tangentially connect her with the black void of Mark's past? The tension coiled tightly in her belly, but there was an undeniable undercurrent of excitement snaking through her apprehension. This was the tide she had chosen to ride. The path she was carving would lead her to the truth, and also test the very fortitude that had stood wavering at the precipice of her current reality. The next day she prepared herself meticulously, carefully choosing her outfit, considering how each detail could convey authority and resolve. Just before leaving, she looked into the mirror, steadying her breath as she pondered the significance of this moment. As she walked toward the cafe, her mind raced with anticipation. She was no longer a passive participant. She was gearing up to challenge the very darkness that lay entangled within her life. As she stepped inside the cafe, the familiar hum of voices surrounded her, blending into the background noise of her anticipated confrontation. But when she spotted Jake's vacant seat, dread coiled back around her heart. Had she finally ventured too far? In that moment of uncertainty, a figure walked through the door. This time it wasn't just Jake, it was someone else entirely. And just as the realization struck her, dread morphed into a desperate question. What crucial piece of her puzzle had just stepped into her life? The unfolding truth was closer than ever, but the shadows it cast were heavy with risk. The cafe's vibrant atmosphere faded into insignificance as Sarah's crosshairs locked onto the newcomer. A stern man, visibly worn but his presence commanding, scanned the room. As recognition dawned, her heart raced. This was Nathan, a top-level executive from Mark's research lab. A man she'd seen in brief interactions but avoided deep connections knowing his powerful presence. The silence screamed. He locked eyes with her, and she felt exposed. "Sarah," he greeted, his voice steady yet tinged with an underlying current of tension. "You got my message." "What do you know about Mark?" she pressed, bypassing niceties. Time was of the essence. He gestured to a booth, his demeanor reserved. Yet Sarah sensed an intention beneath his calm exterior. In this uncharted territory, she felt equal parts anticipation and fear. "I have evidence," Nathan began, leaning in closer, "that could unravel everything you may think you know about your husband." Sarah leaned forward, her determination surging. "I need to understand the truth. Is he alive? Was his death an accident?" The question hung heavily in the air, and Nathan's reaction spoke volumes. He hesitated, weighing his next words carefully. "Mark was involved in matters far beyond what you could imagine, and I can't answer those questions lightly." Frustration bubbled within her. Each moment felt expansive, tainted by doubt. "Just tell me what you know. I've uncovered things, secrets about his work. I've made connections that have put me in danger. I need the truth. For my kids." His expression softened as he absorbed her words, reflecting an understanding of her plight. The world Mark had stepped into, the ethics, the manipulations, were all part of a larger scheme. He was caught in something that threatened to dislodge everything he held dear. Time warped as she processed his words. The haze of grief, Anger and betrayal swirled around her in an imposing miasma. Was his involvement tied to his death? Did it lead to his end? A grim resolve settled onto Nathan's features. He tried to expose some corrupt practices, but he got too close, and he was silenced as a result. Horror cascaded through her system. "You're saying—" Her voice trembled. "That Mark was murdered." "Complicated," Nathan interrupted, his voice turning somber. "Mark didn't just get entangled in research. He started digging into the very fabric of what was happening behind the scenes. If he'd succeeded, it would have shattered careers. Powerful people would do anything to protect their positions." Sarah inhaled, the cold weight of realization crashing over her. The narrative was more valid than she had hoped, yet the implications frightened her. "He left clues," Nathan pressed, pulling out a small folder filled with documents. "Everything he discovered is right here, but pursuing it might put you at risk. Knowing the truth could endanger you and your kids. You have to be careful." "Careful?" she echoed incredulously. "You've seen what it has cost me already. I need to protect my family." "They're already at risk if you dig too deeply," he replied. "But Mark's work also opens a path for you. A chance to shed light on powerful wrongdoings and create a legacy that honors him." Her pulse quickened. The ground shifting beneath her wasn't just about fear, but the prospect of reclamation. There was a floodgate of potential within the chaos. "Tell me what I need to do," she said, defiance igniting a fierce flame within her. "I won't back down now. Not for me. For my children's safety and the truth. It's time for clarity, and I refuse to live in ignorance." With each word, Sarah felt a transformation wash over her. Several shards of her former self merging into something more resolute and capable. She was a mother determined to shield her family, but she was also a woman emerging to claim her power. Nathan's eyes met hers, the uncertainty mingling with respect. "Then shift your thinking. We need to strategize, but know that we may be racing against time. I'll help you." And just like that, a sensation of hope unfurled inwardly, reinforcing the choices she had made thus far. As they began mapping out their next moves, Sarah embraced the peril and possibility intertwined in her new reality. The fight ahead started to take shape, not just to unveil the truth about Mark's past, but to secure a future where she could define her narrative and protect those she loved most, ardently. Whatever dangers loomed, she now understood that light could emerge from shadows. Rising from the past, she felt emboldened. This was not her end but a transformative beginning. This moment would define her legacy. She owed it to herself and her children. As she left the cafe alongside Nathan, she felt a sense of purpose, your spirit ignited, moving forward equipped with intent and clarity. Now, it was time to claim her family's truth, and she was ready to uncover the dark forces that threatened to keep it hidden. Ensure that you catch every future episode, exploring the profound discoveries of personal strength and resilience. You need to subscribe now. Every like you leave feeds the algorithm, allowing these transformative stories to reach those who need them. So, like this video right now. Don't hesitate. Comment below to share your thoughts, reactions, or theories about this concluding chapter. If you found inspiration in the struggle and triumph of Sarah's journey, share this story instantly with at least 5 friends who must see this transformative ending. Only true fans of personal overcoming narratives understand the weight of supporting the channel in these ways. Step up and be part of this movement.